Assalamualaikum and good day to Dr. Nazif. So our group will be presenting a case study on constructive dismissal involving Asia Berhad. So workplace conflict is a common challenge in organizations, especially during periods of economic uncertainty or organizational change. When conflicts are not managed effectively, they can lead to disputes, legal actions, and damage to the relationship between employers and employees. So in this case, we will examine a dispute between Asia and one of its former pilots during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the case centers on changes made to the employee's term of employment, which eventually resulted in a claim of constructive dismissal. This case provides an opportunity to understand the importance of fair conflict management, effective communication, and ethical decision making in human resource management. I will begin by discussing the organization and the background of the conflict before my teammates continue with the analysis. Asia Berhad is one of the leading low-cost airlines in Asia. It was founded in 1993 and began operating as a low-cost carrier in 2001 after being acquired by new management. Since then, AirAsia has expanded rapidly and operates both domestic and international flights across the Asia-Pacific region. Like many airlines worldwide, AirAsia was severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Travel restrictions, border closures, and a sharp decline in passenger demand resulted in significant financial losses. To reduce operating costs and ensure business continuity, the company introduced several cost-saving measures. These included salary reductions, furlough programs, and workforce restructuring. While these measures were intended to help the company survive the crisis, they also created conflict between management and some employees, leading to legal disputes. As a result, he filed a claim with the industrial court, alleging constructive dismissal. After reviewing the evidence, the industrial court ruled in favor of the former pilot and ordered AirAsia to pay compensation. So this case highlights the importance of balancing business survival with employees' contractual rights. It also demonstrates why organizations should communicate openly and consult employees before implementing major changes to employment terms. With that, I will now hand over the presentation to my teammate, who will explain the parties involved and their underlying interests.
Next, I will explain the parties involved in these conflicts. In this case, there are two primary parties involved, which is Asia Berhad as an employer and Eric Koh Kim Lai as the former pilot. Firstly, Asia Berhad was the organization that introduced salary reduction and furlough arrangement during the COVID-19 pandemic. The main reason behind this action was to reduce operational costs and maintain a business continuity during the aviation crisis. The second primary party is Eric Koh Kim Lai, who was a former pilot of AirAsia. He was affected by the change in salary and employment condition. He claimed that these changes were made without a proper agreement and affected his contractual right, which later led to a constructive dismissal claim. Besides the primary parties, there were also secondary parties involved. The Industrial Court of Malaysia played an important role by reviewing the dispute and making the final decision regarding this case. In addition, legal representatives from both sides were involved in presenting arguments and evidence during the legal process. Overall, the conflict involved the disagreement between the employer's business decision and the employee's rights and its expectation. Next, moving on to the position and underlying interests of both parties. For AirAsia, the company's position was that salary reduction and furlough agreement were necessary due to the financial impact of COVID-19. The company needs to reduce costs and ensure the organization could continue operating during a difficult period. The underlying interests of AirAsia were mainly focused on a business survival, financial stable, and maintain the long term of operation. On the other hand, Eric Koch had a different position. He believed that the change to his salary and employment term were implemented without his agreement. He viewed the action as unfair and a possible breach of his employment contract. His main interests were protect his job security, receive fair treatment, and ensure his employment rights were respected. Therefore, the main conflict between the both parties can be summarized as a conflict between organization survival and employee right. AirAsia focused on the protecting the company, while Eric Koch focused on fairness and contractual protection.
Next, I'll discuss the conflict management strategies used by AirAsia's management during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, to overcome the financial crisis, the company introduced several cost-saving measures. So, the first strategy was reducing the claimant's salary by approximately 75% without obtaining his meaningful consent. Although the company argued that this was necessary to sustain business operation, but the industrial court later found that the reduction exceeded the employer's contractual authority. And the second strategy was placing the claimant on prolonged unpaid furlough. While furloughs were intended as temporary measures, the claimant remained without salary for an extended period, creating financial uncertainty and affecting the employment relationship. Lastly, there was a limited employee consultation, which is the claimant had little opportunity to participate in discussions or negotiate the changes affecting his employment, and as a result, communication became one-sided and the employees concerned were not adequately addressed. Overall, these management strategies were intended to support business continuity, but they also became the main factors that contributed to the workplace conflict. To analyze this case, we applied the Thomas Kilman conflict mode model and the procedural justice perspective. So, based on the Thomas Kilman model, AirAsia mainly adopted the competing conflict management style. So this means the organization prioritized its own objectives, particularly business survival during the pandemic, over the employees' concern. So while this approach helped reduce operational costs, it also weakened a trust between the employer and the employee. And at the same time, elements of the avoiding style were also evident. So instead of addressing the employee's concern through meaningful discussion or negotiation, the issues remain unresolved for an extended period. So this delayed a conflict resolution and eventually it led to a legal action. While from the procedural justice perspective, the management approach lacked fairness in the decision-making process, and the claimant was not meaningfully consulted before the salary reduction, and it is prolonged unfair furlough were implemented. And this reduced the employees' perceptions of fairness and weakened confidence in the organization. As a result, instead of de-escalating the conflict, the management's approach caused the dispute to escalate into a constructive dismissal case, which ultimately resulted in the industrial court ordering AirAsia to compensate to the former pilot. And that concludes our analysis of the conflict management strategies and their impact.
The first approach is collaborative negotiation. Instead of making a decision without employee agreement, HR should have a conducted decision with effective employees before changing the employment condition. Through the negotiation, both parties could explore solutions such as a temporary salary adjustment, voluntary unpaid leave, or flexible working and agreement. The second approach is transparent communication. HR should clearly explain the reason behind this organization change, provide the updates and allow employee to express their concern. This can help employees feel that the decision-making process is fair and increase the trust. Third approach is early conflict resolution. HR should act as a mediator between a management and employees before the conflict become a legal dispute. Open the decision and problem solving can help both sides reach a better solution. Lastly, HR must ensure that all decisions protect employee rights and follow the employment contract and legal requirements. Although organizations need to manage financial challenge, employee welfare and fairness should still be considered. In conclusion, an effective HR approach should balance a company needs with employee rights through the collaboration, communication, fairness and legal compliance.
Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. For this section, I will explain the ethical responsibility of the HR manager in the Asia case. Firstly, HR managers must ensure ethical and legal compliance by making employment decisions that follow the Employment Act and other labor laws. Secondly, employees should be consulted before any major organizational changes such as retrenchment or changes to employment term. This helps employers understand the situation and express their concern. Thirdly, transparent communication is very important. HR should communicate honestly and provide timely information to reduce confusion and maintain trust. In addition, HR manager must protect employees' rights by ensuring fair treatment and respecting contractual obligations. Finally, HR should balance business sustainability with employee welfare. Even during financial difficulty, organizations should act ethically and consider employees' well-being. Next, I will present several recommendations to improve HR management. The first recommendation is to enhance employee consultation by involving employees before implementing important decisions. Secondly, organizations should strengthen communication strategies through regular updates and clear explanation to build trust. Thirdly, companies should improve internal dispute resolution mechanisms such as grievance procedures and mediation so workplace issues can be resolved fairly. Lastly, HR managers should receive continuous training in employment law, ethical decision making, conflict management, and employee relations to improve their professional competence. This recommendation can help create a more transparent, fair, and productive workplace. To conclude, the Asia case demonstrates the importance of ethical HR practices during organizational change. The case shows that financial challenges do not justify unfair employment practices. A lack of consultation and poor communication can lead to the employee dissatisfaction and legal disputes. Therefore, HR managers must always uphold fairness, transparency, and respect for the employee's rights while balancing organizational needs. By practicing ethical leadership and effective communication, organizations can maintain positive employment relations and achieve long-term success. Thank you.